Dan Abbott,
Yes.
ABB.
ABBOTT.
I'm the only one. I have a cousin, Kelly. She's tall, like probably a little bit taller than you. Everybody else.
Ready? We're going live.
Yep. Firewood over here. Yep. We're gonna move some firewood over here, Jeff. Oh, Charles done found Ella.
Come on. Bring it on. There we go. Hey, Dave Adams here once again, Street Level America. We are here at the Patriot Campout in Lafayette, Georgia. There's three different ways to say that: Lafayette, Lafayette, and Lafayette. I think the locals tell us it's supposed to be Lafayette, Georgia, right?
We should ask the Marquis how he pronounces it.
The Marquis. Okay. With us once again, a new friend of ours, Dan Abbott. Dan, welcome to Street Level America. Welcome to the Patriot Campout.
Well, thanks for having me.
Now let's talk about your history just a little bit. You were in Special Forces, so let's give people.
I was never in Special Forces.
Okay, go ahead.
82nd Airborne Division.
82nd Airborne. Okay.
And I spent some time in the pipeline or the training program for special operations.
Now you also won some awards. You were in national competition, so in 82nd Airborne, as you did competitions against other members of the Army.
So
Tell us about that.
I didn't do a lot of competing when I was in the 82nd. When I came to the Virginia National Guard, I did a lot of competing there. And so yeah, the Army sponsors every year competitions for NCO and Soldier of the Year. And it's basically open to anyone that wants to go out and compete. And so 2023, I started going to competitions and winning competitions. So I won the state competition, I won the regional competition, and went to the national competition, which was in Alaska that year, and placed number 3 in the nation.
Number 3 in the nation in the National Guard.
Correct.
So we have, by all merits that we want to, when you're competing against other members of the National Guard, you're high up there. You're a soldier, in other words, that we want in the National Guard.
Oh, absolutely, and they're measuring and evaluating everything from your leadership, your tactical proficiency, your technical proficiency, your intelligence. They're evaluating you based on all of that.
So what they did in their infinite wisdom was they kicked you out of the National Guard because of your affiliation with the...
Correct. A year after I was starting almost immediately after I was the number 3 ranked NCO in the nation, they decided that they didn't like my politics. They didn't like my involvement with promoting the idea that real power belongs in the hands of the American people and not in the hands of state and federal government. And so they set about creating policies and writing memorandums and new policies so that they could kick me out.
So one of the things that Pete Hegseth wants to do as the Secretary of War is return war fighters back to the Department of War. This is a war fighter here in National Guard, highest ranked, number 3 in the nation in national competition, kicked out of the National Guard because of his political affiliation. Folks, if we want our best and brightest in the military, we got to stop doing this. We got to stop kicking people out because of their political affiliation. And you tried legally to try to get back in, and tell me what happened.
Yeah, I have a team of lawyers that challenged the legality of the policy. So basically the Adjutant General wrote a new policy that prohibited simultaneous membership in more than one component of the Virginia militia. That's Tag Policy 70-25. And what it says is that if you are, there's 3 components to militia in the state of Virginia according to Virginia Code 44, which is the Army National Guard, the Virginia Defense Force, and then the unorganized militia, which it further defines as being the whole body of the people, males ages 16 to 55. And so the new policy says that if you're a member of the National Guard, well, you can't also be a member of the unorganized militia. Now, interestingly, because I am a member of the National Guard, I am automatically not a member of the unorganized militia anymore because I have traded up for a higher level. Additionally, unorganized militia is a class of people. So I was ordered to resign from the unorganized militia. How I resigned from males ages 17 to 55, I have no idea. And so my lawyers wrote about an 18-page letter that challenged the legality and the functionality of the policy, to which the Adjutant General responded, "We're confident it's legal, and they proceeded to kick me out of the United States Armed Forces because they don't like my politics.
Folks, this is wrong. This is wrong. If we want to fight and win the next World War, if we want to have the best and brightest serving in our nation's National Guard, in the Army, we've got to stop kicking people out because of their politics. We've got to stop doing it, or else we will not have the best and brightest. What is your current status? You're obviously in the unorganized militia.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm separated from the United States Armed Forces, so I'm a civilian.
Folks, this is wrong. If we want to win, then I'll say this again. This is just mind-blowing. And this is the problem we have in governance today. They're making really stupid decisions, not based on common sense. We have a leader in the White House, Donald Trump, that wants to bring common sense back to government. There are many areas in our governance where we need to return common sense. I'm standing here next to a young man who should be in the National Guard, and we kicked him out.
Let me expound on that just a little bit. So the case that they tried to make at my separation board is that I'm insubordinate and either cannot or will not follow orders. Interestingly, they were not able to find a single soldier who has ever served with me or even met me to testify at a hearing to say that I'm insubordinate. Not even one. They called 2 witnesses. Neither one of their witnesses have ever even met me.
They just didn't like your politics, so
they didn't like my politics. So they cited that I have misdemeanor convictions on my driving record and that I refuse to comply with the tag policy, and therefore I'm insubordinate, can't or won't follow orders.
With the different administration in there, with the different Department of War now, the administration currently in the White House has a more pro-common sense stance. What are the options of possibly having it revisited?
There is no appeal process because the decision came from the Adjutant General of the Army National Guard in Virginia, who is appointed by the governor, so there's a little bit of a disjointed chain of command there. And yes, I believe that if the Secretary of the Department of War decided to intervene, that he could overturn that. But the other thing that really grinds a lot of people's gears is not only did they separate me, they didn't even give me an honorable discharge. I got a general discharge for serious misconduct.
Folks, this is wrong. Come on. We've got to find, first of all, number one, we've got to find stories like this. We've got to find issues like this. If we're going to restore common sense governance to America in all areas from education to the military, when we find stories like this, we need to drill them home and say, okay, there's a story, we're going to fix it, and we're going to fix it now. So Pete Hegseth, if you're watching, we need to fix this. This young man who's well-spoken, this is the second interview we have with him. I'm very impressed with his ability to carry on a conversation. He's obviously very intelligent. We can tell from the conversation. Obviously, when stacked with other members of the National Guard in national competitions, you've ranked extremely high. This is the caliber of individual we need in the National Guard. We've got to quit kicking people out because of their politics. This is not good for America. It's not good for America's safety. We got to fix this. How do you feel about that? What I just said, and do you want to expound on that further?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct, and I think that the Secretary of War is exactly correct in his approach. Ultimately, both serving and leading the United States Armed Forces, which the purpose of the Armed Forces is to kill the enemies of America in close combat. That's why we exist. And if we're going to have an organization like that, which we must, it should be made up and particularly led by men that are romping, stomping war fighters. And yes, we need to put those men back in command. This idea of ticket punching to get into command, it just makes no sense. All throughout I think it was James Mattis that said, with 6,000 years of documented military history, we have no excuse not to be an expert. And I believe that to be a very, very accurate statement. And if we look at all of those years of documented military history, the leaders that excelled were men that led from the front. And we need those kind of leaders. Our leaders have no excuse not to be in phenomenal shape. They have no excuse not to be tactically and technically proficient. They have no excuse not to be romping, stomping warfighters that are leaders of men. And yeah, those are the kind of men that need to be leading this organization.
Did you see Pete Hegseth talking to the Joint Chiefs and everybody else at the speech he gave the other day when he said
Quantico?
Quantico, that everybody has to meet fitness. I don't care if you're a 4-star general, you're going to get out behind the desk, and you're going to do PT, and you're going to meet a requirement. If you don't, you're out. What do you think about that?
Well, all I would like to know is how in the world has that not been the policy from the beginning? How did we ever move away from, oh, you're a leader, you no longer have to meet standards? Oh, you're leading men, now you can be fat and lazy and you don't have to be tactically or technically proficient? It just doesn't even make any sense.
How do you, as a member of the former member of the National Guard, member of the unorganized militia, as you look at the current administration, look at Pete Hegseth as Secretary of War, first of all, renaming the department Secretary of War, your take on that?
Well, it's absolutely the right answer. I mean, that's the purpose of the department is to go to war. That's why we have a military, is so that we have the capacity to go to war. And it reinforces and drives home the idea it is not nearly as great a deterrent to foreign powers for us to have a Secretary of Defense and a Department of Defense as it is that we have a Secretary of War and the War Department.
Now, folks, I'm going to get a bit graphic here. We've talked to individuals, we've talked to mothers of young men killed, tortured in Iraq, Afghanistan. We are dealing with an enemy that wants to eat our lunch. We are dealing with an enemy that wants to destroy America and kill all of us. Sometimes what they do with American soldiers in the Middle East when they're captured, they disembowel them alive. Another thing they do is they take 2 military vehicles and they put a rope around one leg of the soldier on one vehicle and a rope around the other leg of the vehicle, and they pull them apart like a wishbone. These are the kinds of enemies that America is facing. We need to have war fighters, like this young man right here, that are willing, that they can think on their feet, that can go into the battlefield, not only out-fight the enemy, but out-think the enemy. We have a well-spoken, very intelligent person here that should be in our National Guard, should be, I think, in the Army. We need to fix this. And folks, I'm going to say again, we need to find issues like this, address this issue, and say, what can we do to make sure that this issue does not repeat itself? So for this young man, it's not fair to him, it's not fair to America. We need to fix this case and then take measures to make sure that other cases like this do not repeat itself. And there are a plethora of stories out there that defy common sense, defy logic. And we got to find them, and we have to be not afraid of finding them. And then once we're presented with them, we have to address them, and we have to fix them. That's how we fix America. So, closing comments.
Can I get just a little bit preachy?
Yes, you can. Go right ahead.
So I think you started to hit on something a little bit there when you were talking about the evil that some of our enemies have. And you know, the Bible is explicitly clear that the heart of man is desperately wicked and deceitful above all things. And it talks about man as only in every intention of his heart was only wicked all the time. We need to understand that there are people like that in the world, and that throughout the history of humanity, the Almighty has used good, godly men as a shield to the innocent. And ultimately, that is one of the things that the United States military does, is we act as a shield to the innocent. And yes, we need good men that will wear the uniform and are capable of great violence to combat that kind of evil.
And as far as the great violence, I gave you examples of that. That's the kind of enemy we face on the world stage. The first time I heard a story that one of the things the military was proud of in former administrations was somebody reading a coming out poem on an aircraft carrier. Now, that's not the kind of warfighter we need. That's not the kind of War Department, Defense Department America needs. It's got to be like President Ronald Reagan said, peace through strength. They have to be afraid to take on the U.S. military because they won't win. If they think they can defeat the U.S. military, then we have World War III, and that's got to stop. Pete Hegseth, if you're watching this interview, I hope maybe there's some way we can get it to him to see if we can get this issue fixed, because my feeling with listening to Hegseth and Donald Trump is this is the kind of issue they would like to address. So we'll see if we can make that happen. I don't know. We got to start fixing this stuff. All right? Hey, thank you for talking to us today. God bless you for
Absolute
your service.
pleasure.
Thank you for your service to your nation.
You're welcome. It's a
and your
pleasure.
community.
Yes, sir.
Anything else we want to talk about while we're live here? open mic, so to speak.
Uh-oh.
Go right ahead. This is America. I checked, and we have the First Amendment. We can say pretty much anything.
We need Christian men in America to start acting like men. We've got this idea that we have created of toxic masculinity, which honestly is a little bit of an oxymoron, because I don't think that you can be masculine and be toxic, because they're diametrically opposed to each other. I also don't believe that you can be there's no possibility of being masculine without being Christian, and there's no possibility of being Christian without being masculine, as far as men are concerned. Those two must coexist. In order to be a biblical man, you must be masculine, and that's something that the church, and I'm using that really broadly and widely speaking, in America has lost. We have not necessarily overtly, but maybe inadvertently promoted the idea in America that Christian men should be weak and effeminate. And it was a huge mistake, and that is a significant part of the reason that our culture is in the condition that it is in, is because we don't have masculine men, and those masculine men are not using the church to influence culture and to influence government, which is the job of the church.
Amen. David in the Bible, he was a war fighter. He was a man after God's own heart. So you can be a man after God's own heart and be a masculine man. Are you telling me that David of the Bible was a toxic had toxic masculinity? Masculinity was one of his problems? It wasn't. He was David. He was a man after God's own heart, and he was a war fighter. Got to fix this, folks.
We need to start actually looking at what the Bible says. Read the story of David and Goliath in the Bible. It's not a nursery rhyme. It's a violent, graphic story of a warrior extinguishing a man that's mocking the armies of the living God, that's mocking his God on a battlefield.
Let's take that one step further. This was Goliath challenging the nation of Israel. Hey, who's going to come out and fight me? I'll take on the nation. I'll kill all of you. That's to some extent what we're facing in the world today. They're looking at America and say, we'll take you on and we'll destroy you because we don't like America, we don't like your God, we don't like your Bible, we don't like your Christianity, we want to defeat it. I think to some extent we are looking at a David versus Goliath battle today. Now, obviously, America is the biggest and best military in the world, but we have to keep it that way. So, and I'm glad you brought up the point about toxic masculinity, because you cannot tell me David was guilty of that. David was a man after God's own heart, and David was a warrior for God. We need more. If you look at my Facebook page, you'll see how I feel about this issue. We as men of God have to be warriors for God. We love people. We want to bring them to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. But when presented with the fight, we'll take it home.
We've corrupted so many principles of Scripture. In one of them is that there's a biblical mandate to Christian men to protect and provide. Protect and provide. I have a job as a Christian man to protect the weak and the innocent. That's my family, of course. Most would agree that's my church, but it's also my community and my country, because those who have the ability have the responsibility. And we have just lost that culturally. We don't protect the weak and the innocent, which you can see clearly evidenced by the violent crime that just happens rampantly in our cities.
Where the criminals have more rights than the victims, and we open the cells of the jail doors, and we allow these people, these animals, to wreak havoc, to rape, rob, and plunder. And day after day after day, I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of hearing these stories about young women who are riding the subway who are stabbed to death, and home invasions where a 15-year-old, not a 15-year-old, but a 5'6" girl, weighed 115 pounds, was drugged from her bed naked, begging for her life and begging for her father, and was shot in a home invasion. And that person had a rap sheet a mile long. And Federico, Mr. Federico, the father of that young man, I love, I think it was in the Carolinas, he gave a testimony before a congressional hearing saying, you're going to get sick and tired of hearing my voice. You're going to get sick and tired of seeing my face because this has got to end. I'm going to remember my daughter by saying, this is going to stop, and you will not see me go away until this does. And that's the attitude that we as fathers, we as men of God have to restore Christianity to America and to protect the innocent. And it's got to start now.
It's the job of government to punish wrongdoers, those who commit evil acts. It's not government's job to stop them. It's our job to prevent it. It's the job of biblical men to prevent violence.
There you go. Hey, thank you for your service. God bless you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Street Level America. We are here at the Patriot Campout in Lafayette, Georgia. Go to Small Town Underground, and you can see the directions. You can see the address, how to get here. If you're a like-minded patriot, we have Lucretia Hughes here, and we'll be talking to her a little bit later on. And there's people that we just want to talk to about America. What you see as issues in this country. How do we fix this nation? How do we restore to a nation that has been strong for 250 years? How do we guarantee that this nation will continue on for another 250 years? Now, one of the things I look at is young men. How old are you?
14.
There's a 14-year-old young man running a camera right now. And I'm 65. I want to make sure that when this 14-year-old is 65, he has the same America that I have and that we're proud of. When I grew up in Idaho, I remember 4th of July parades. I remember going to Grandma's house and playing baseball and 4th of July, and we got to fix it, folks. We got to fix it. This is Street Level America. I'm Dave Adams. Patriot Campout will be here all day and into the evening. Watch for further reports. We'd like to see you here.